a little gadgy about that.
Yeah, it's not. The mic's kind of blocking, but I think it'll pick it up. And now I'm gonna switch. When you guys start doing it, I'm gonna switch the radio off, so then it'll be like the full screen.
That's my favorite part. All right, y'all. What's up? We are on the air with WWR 89.3, Chicago, FM. So, welcome to Vintage House Show. Yet another live edition. Hi. You know, we got to move out just a little bit before we get started. So, we're going to make sure our mics are working.
Testing.
Wait, keep talking.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Is that which one is that? M1 or M2?
Hello.
Do
All right, I think we're ready. All right, I think we're ready. Yes, 1, 2. That's better. All right, I'm gonna ask Mateo. All right, so hey, welcome everybody. I'm back. My once a month appearance on Vintage House. I want to say thank you for y'all for tuning in to our show with Robert Williams. He was such an amazing guest, and hearing from him, I got so much great feedback about the stories that he tells. I mean, I was learning a lot, so it just goes to show you that when you are, thank you. It just goes to show you that there's so many stories out there that it's impossible to know everything. And even when you talk to some of the same people over and over, you know, a good question elicits a good answer. Sometimes you just have to ask the right question. So anyway, I just want to say thanks for tuning in again. I'm here once a month. You can also catch the show on our Love Vintage House Show podcast. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our Love Vintage House Show podcast. You can do it right now, because I know some of you are on your phone or your computer as you're watching. So feel free to do that. It really helps us to sort of just build the brand and get the word out about Chicago's unique place in Housemans of History. And it's a story that we want everybody to hear. So anyway, let me get on with what we're doing tonight. And I'm going to first say thank you and welcome to our guests tonight. This is Cameron Phillips and Marquan Jones. That's right. Marquan. How about that? And we're going to have an interesting conversation. We're talking about house music museum, but we're also talking about the intersection of house music and thank you, Steve. This goes way back. And so before we get started, let y'all give a proper introduction to everybody. speak into the mic so we can make you up. It'd be awesome. So let's start with Cam. Cam and I met, was it like 2 years ago now? 2 years ago? Is it just last year?
It was that long, but it was actually a year from now.
Wow. Okay, so it's our 1 year friend anniversary.
Literally,
Okay.
at the House Music exhibit at Navy Pier.
At the House Music exhibit at Navy Pier. Is that where we met?
That's where we met. Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
And Cam's a San Francisco native, but he's Chicago, born and bred in a different year. So we're going to talk about that. Marquan, you are Chicagoan from Austin. What's up, Westsiders? Look, just give us like a 1 minute, like who you are and how you're connected to this program. And we'll start with you.
Okay, so my name is Marquan Jones. I am from the west side of Chicago, originally Austin, and I have an untraditional background, academically trained in sociology and community development, which kind of led me into actually just the food system and solving food insecurity. But I always said that I'm passionate about what people put in their bodies and on their bodies. And style and personal style has always been something that's been important to me and my family. And undergrad at Cornell University, I was a part of a fashion magazine. Then I graduated in 2020 and COVID hit, and I wanted to find a way to continue my journey in fashion in Chicago because I loved it so much in New York. And I really didn't know where to start. And then that's when I discovered my nonprofit organization now, but I didn't found it. My friend Taylor founded it. And I joined, kind of independent contributor, and then eventually became a director and then president 3 years ago. So it's really grown over the last 5 years since its inception. And really our purpose is to eradicate the necessity for fashion professionals to have to leave to host.
I love it.
So that's kind of what we do, and excited to work on this project with Cameron.
Hey, thank you for that great introduction. And I almost wore my New York hat tonight. I did. I had it on. I was like, it was cool, but I'm representing Chicago. So, but no, thank you for that. And what a great history. I mean, like you are multi-talented, multifaceted. So it's going to be interesting to talk about the intersection of house music and fashion in this exciting project that's about to happen. You guys are going to be really right. So Cam, can you give us an intro?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm definitely a proud Chicago transplant. Definitely going to be a Chicago lifer. So I lived in San Francisco, Columbus, Ohio, and even in Florida growing up. And I was actually a student athlete my whole life, and I got recruited to football at Wisconsin. But I've always had DJed on the side, whether that was just like pre-games and just parties, house parties in general. It was like my escape from being a student athlete. And that's something me and Mark shared in common. Like, he was also a student athlete at Cornell. So, and he was a defensive back. I always give him crap because I'm a receiver. So it's kind of surreal that we're working together right now because I never thought I would be a defensive back. So I ended up earning a marketing degree out of University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I took the leap of faith and went to Chicago. I had no idea what was going to come out of that. And I was kind of lost in a way because I was like, okay, football's gone, lost sense of self. And I started immersing myself more into Chicago and the dance music cultural scene. And something just started to stir up inside of me. And it was like, I'm tired of just being a consumer. How can I contribute back to the industry? And I dig deeper, just did a simple Google search. Is there a dance music museum in Chicago? And I saw that there wasn't. And I was like, okay, this is way overdue. Why isn't this a thing? And it just took me on this journey of figuring out the answer why. And what also is important to me is to find a way to bring community together. How can we create unity around this? And I saw it as like a cultural movement opportunity. As like, how can we uplift Chicago in such a positive light? And what makes Chicago? And I think it's our diverse arts and cultural scene here and how rich it is. And I think it's what the culture does with itself. It not just uplifts the music side, but the fashion and art side as well. Yeah. And I think it was a cool strategic move to find a way where we could introduce dance music culture and fashion all in the same room.
We're gonna get to exactly how that happens. But before we do that, I ask this: what's the divide between receivers and defense? What's the defense back?
Yeah.
Okay, what? Like, I'm not a football
I'll let you take this
player,
first.
so-
Yeah, I'll take a
If you're
crack
a
at it.
football fan, maybe you know.
Yeah, so it's
Hey,
simple.
Joe
Joe Smooth. Oh,
Smooth. Hey,
What's up,
love
Joe?
it, love it. So it's simple. It's offense versus defense, just like with any sport.
okay, who's the offense?
Cameron, wide receiver. So the quarterback
As you
throws
can
the
see.
ball to him, and then I make sure that he doesn't catch it.
Okay.
Or I
okay.
catch it, and that's an interception. So
Yeah.
that's kind
Okay,
of.
okay. Now I'll pay close attention. I
Mhm.
did watch this last game with the Eagles.
Oh, the
Oh,
Super Bowl.
the
I
Chiefs?
just that was for all politics.
Yeah,
I
have
was
to.
These Eagles have got to
They
win.
have to. Can't have no Chiefs
I was
win.
very excited.
Uh-huh.
I learned a lot. But all right, so let's get into it. So why Chicago? Why are you doing this here? Why? I mean, and even before we go there, you said you were a young person. Both of you are young people who like house music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's a topic that comes up a lot. Like how this house music, how do we continue sort of the love of this music, of this culture? And so it really warms my heart to hear you both say you were listening to it already, because that's not always the case. For
Yeah.
some people in Chicago, younger people, I would say in their 20s, certainly my kids, they tend to think of it as like, this is like jazz, it's kind of like what older art.
For sure.
But that's not always true in different cultures. So like when I spend at Smart Bar or those places, all young people, they all love house music. But in different parts of the city, particularly where it started, you see more of a sort of a generational divide. But how did you get into house music as a
My first exposure to dance music culture was literally at Epcot at Disney on New Year's Eve.
Epcot
At Epcot.
and Disney?
So,
Okay.
so I was literally at a family dinner in the Italian section of Epcot, and I remember seeing these laser lights. I felt like this bass coming out. I was like, Mom, like I was in middle school. I was like, Mom, like we need to check that out right after dinner. And the moment I stepped out and went straight to the bass, I fell in love instantly. And I went back home after that trip and bought my first Pioneer DJ deck.
No, you didn't.
And I started mixing nonstop.
Wow.
And I still have that same board. And it was a pretty surreal moment, full circle moment for me when I got to talk to Pioneer DJ headquarters and how they wanted to get involved and support the museum. Initially, I was like, wow, like what are the odds? Like 9 years later, that I was going to be working with Pioneer DJ.
What was that? What did you buy? What were the tracks you did? Remember?
The deck, it was like one of the most outdated.
No, the song.
The songs?
Yeah.
So that was like back when I was like playing like World Hold On, like Music Sounds Better With You, like
yes.
Because I didn't like get tapped into like the soulful like house until like
the Music Sounds Better With You is house.
Yeah, but like to like that Chicago like deep house, I didn't feel that until I started getting exposure to the city.
Yeah.
Because like again, like I was just a juvenile when it came to like getting into the industry, like tapping in.
That's so interesting that you would get it from Epcot.
Right.
This is his first exposure to dance music. Hey, Kevin McFall, fashion, yes, music, fashion, and entertainment. Because Chicago has a rich history in fashion and house music. Sometimes we don't discuss it, but as we were preparing for the show, and I'm just talking to these guys, I started thinking about our own history with people like Disco Tony Shelton, Aisha Mays, and Helen Bailey, and Billy Winfrey. Like these are names, and please feel free to contribute your own. Those are ones that came off the top of my head. It was all about fashion. I remember at the group that I was in a social group called Vertigo. That was the first thing we did. It's like, how do we stylize ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
What do we do that's original? We had like a designer, like this woman who was like the South Side. We put together our clothes, and like literally my friends would design outfits and put them together. Because it was a production. It's like, oh, you can't just go out there with jeans and t-shirt. It's like, no, we need like an outfit. So fashion is very important. Sterling Capriccio, thank you. Absolutely. So this is going to be really important, I think, as we talk about the space. We're going to talk about an event that's really important that really is going to epitomize the importance of fashion and dance culture and house music specifically, the space that Cameron and Marquan are working on together. But before we do that, I do want to hear about your entry to house music. What happened?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think one of the first things you said, the question was why Chicago. So my answer to that is why not, and then
Yes.
also why now. So I feel like one of the things that I learned in college was a term called San and you have to reach back to look for it. And you talked about this intergenerational divide. Me and Cameron, as young people, there's oftentimes like a lack of empathy on both sides. Older people like young people are entitled, they don't like this, they don't like that, and then sometimes young people misunderstand people who are older. And I think it takes conversations like these to understand that we both have, we're all experts in our lived experiences. And I think me doing my research and being a history buff and doing my due diligence of just understanding Chicago history in general, fashion and music has always been intimately connected. Where you can go way back to Soul Train or to Ebony Fashion Fair and Ebony Magazine with Johnson Publishing Company. And we talked about all these various ways in which the culture, us as Black people, but also everyone else also kind of joins this movement. So when we think about that, knowing where we've been to know where we're going, we wanted to rekindle that relationship and that love. And Cam always says that the swag of Chicago. So I think with that, in this modern day era, we've had Virgil Abloh, who was a DJ as well, an architect and also a fashion designer. So he's multi-hyphenates, which we would consider ourselves to be as well, is the intersection of all of these things. So we strategically align with Expo Chicago, which is already a world-renowned art exposition, where people come all over the world to come see the art that may be here. And we felt that fashion and music deserved to be in that conversation because those are also art forms.
Absolutely. So thank you. Shout out Daryl. Shout out Kim Basel. Thanks for checking in with us. I wanted to say this. There's been a lot of interest in doing a house music piece. We did an exhibition, and just for the record, the exhibition was an evolving process. We're going to do it again. And for those of you who feel like you want to hear more of this, less of that, please reach out to me because we're going to have a next phase of the exhibit to be announced, but in a very, very cool place. So if you didn't see yourself represented or represented well enough, or thought somebody got way too much, I'm here for all those conversations. But so we talked about why Chicago. Why not? We don't have it. How about we are the centerpiece for so many things? How about we're the place for the history of house music and blues and jazz and so many other art forms? So yes, someone said Amsterdam has a house music museum. How Amsterdam get a house music museum before Chicago?
Talk about it.
How did that happen? But so why now? Let's talk about now. Why are we doing it now? 2024.
I think the industry or the genre itself has gotten really powerful and big just globally.
Yes.
And I think Chicagoans and pioneers are looking themselves why aren't we being recognized?
Why aren't pioneers being recognized?
And that's what kind of really got me into trying to spearhead this movement. It's the pioneers, without them, I wouldn't have a lot of these euphoric memories and experiences, and I met so many great friends, and I was like, how can I give back to them? Because I want them to be acknowledged for the global impact that they've made. They really have made community and unity around the world. It's a powerful music genre that definitely should not be taken advantage of. It should be commercialized or run off of greed. And I think we need to really just hone in on just the authenticity of it. What's the bottom line of dance music culture and its community? And I think that's what Chicago needs. I think that's the backbone of the city is dance music culture. It's such a segregated city, but dance music culture brings everyone from all different avenues and in neighborhoods and streets and cultures. It's a melting pot. And and that's what's important to me. Is like community is like the foundation and motive of what makes me up. I get so fulfilled to like be able to collaborate with like fashion and art people as well. It's super versatile, and it's just like how do we own that? Because at the end of the day, like Amsterdam, like there's a techno museum in Berlin and Detroit's a big all noise, but Chicago has to do the same thing. Like we are the foundation of this global genre, but we won't earn our respect or appreciation unless we have the physical infrastructure on it. And it started with just unifying the pioneers, the community, not just one particular group, but you have to make sure that it was a community effort. It wasn't just one person. It wasn't just sprinting up. It was a whole bunch of counterparts that really brought the movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
To today.
And those people are inspiration, and that's where it started. But that was 40 plus years ago. So a lot has happened in that time frame. But you guys have talked about the importance of sort of reaching back to go forward, really honoring pioneers and honoring the breadth of those decades. So tell me what that's going to look like. So there's an event that actually is the catalyst for the museum. So I'm just going to draw out sort of how we think this is going to occur. I in full disclaimer, I am an advisor to the project, but there are a lot of people. So maybe you can talk about who's involved and why they're involved on both sides, and then let's draw out what's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what comes involved with the Museum of House, we definitely have unified a big portion of the dance music community around it, including the Frankie Knuckles Foundation, chosen few DJs, Park Music Festival, the Joe Shahans of the world, and then yourself as well. We're working with your team, and it's been like a huge help and boost of confidence for me to like spearhead this because it's very hard to get a lot of those people in the room before that, and for me to come in it as an outsider and just honestly to speak from the heart of just trying to create community around just one name to do this because we got one shot at this.
Yeah,
I mean, like it was perfect momentum with the house music 40 movement, and it was everyone just started to unify behind that, and I thought it was like great momentum that we could not let slow down, and we need to find a moment in time where we could make a statement in the city, and it wasn't just around music. It's more in music. I was like, how can we find a way where we can have music, fashion, and art
fashion
coexist under one roof?
That has to happen. So talk about the art. So you named some folks who are very, just revered, in the house music community. Some older folks. I would like to hear about who are some of the younger people who are other like your peers.
Yeah.
And then you say for the fashion piece, like you mentioned a couple of names where what fashion communities are coming to the table to make this event happen that's going to help lead to this bigger museum idea that we're going to. When are you going to talk about the museum? We'll get there. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of wanted to start with the context as well. It says the name of the event, right? So Chicago Renaissance Showcase. So again, me being a history buff, I thought about this insight that I had where Renaissance occurred during times of strife, right? So the bubonic plague, the Italian Renaissance, the Great Depression around the Harlem Renaissance, COVID-19. And I'm like, there's something happening in Chicago, and we're at this intersection and this moment of just understanding the zeitgeist of what's happening in the art world and the fashion world. And I have a lot of my friends doing all these different things. I'm like, wow, like it's hard to realize you're in something when you're in it. But I think we're going to look back at this time 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like that was a moment, that was the catalyst. And I think, again, knowing history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And I think that's what, COVID, and we all went through a lot of trauma. And honestly, that unfortunately creates the most beautiful art, when you go through something. So I think naming that, and also going back to like the great the Columbian Exposition the World's Fair of the past, where Chicago would show all the our industrial might, and even black and brown people were excluded from that. When you look back at history, so to censor us but include everyone, I think was important for this project, and naming the Chicago Renaissance Showcase is given that power because we think that again this would be a catalyst for the museum. Also, timing is super important because we just came off of the inaugural Chicago Fashion Week, which I sit on the board of. So that being last year, October 2024, and wanted to continue to do that this year in October 2025. I'm like, what's that other touch point? And Expo Chicago already exists. How can we kind of align with that? So in terms of the fashion players that are involved, obviously my nonprofit Chicago Fashion Coalition, I think the word coalition is the most important part of our name because we seek to coalesce and collaborate with other fashion organizations, but also interdisciplinary, with music. We've even done some culinary events where we, the intersection of food and fashion, architecture and fashion, like Open House Chicago. We did, photo shoots during these historic landmarks. So we've always done those type of things. So for production, we have my friend Preem and Jeff from Congruent Space, which is a Black-owned boutique in Chicago, owned by Preem and Prosper, and they're doing a lot of fabrication. And then Antis Art Festival, which is another subculture and pocket of fashion. Casalina, who is doing the casting and for the models and the runway show portion. So again, I think we've been able to align everyone. We are all Chicagoans and we all love Chicago, even if we have different design languages or aesthetics. We all share the same values, and that's what moves us.
So, okay, so I'm a history nerd too, and so like my little sensors were going off. Like, what are they talking about? There's a great book you might want to read. I think it's Dr. History. Anyway, it's called All the World is Here. And it's about the 1893 World's Fair, where he actually says the opposite. So there were a lot of Black people involved in making it. Not, I wouldn't say a lot. It was like one architect. And then there was colored people's day. Anxiety Wells, that's what brought her to Chicago. There's a whole, like, he wrote a whole book about it. So it's interesting because often we're there, but we're not recognized. And so for new history notes, a little aside.
I'm gonna read it.
So so thank you for that. I really appreciate the rest of that. So let's talk about the day. So we need a history. We need a house music exhibit, a museum in Chicago, and that's what we're doing. Back in 1988, we were working with the great Kevin Halstead at Discover Dance Festival having fashion show. Yeah, this is what this is all about. So thank you. Hey, Nico. Hey, Michelle. Riding boots and riding pants. Oh my God. I wish Aisha Mays was watching this because she had that outfit.
Taking notes.
Riding boots.
What decade was that?
This was the 80s.
Okay.
Y'all remember? Okay, let's talk. Since we're gonna go there, I'm gonna do that since we have folks who are coming. There was definitely some, like, I would say fashionable eras in house music culture. Like before we started to come up with that. Riding pants, Izods, K-Swiss. Come on now, help me out. What was some of that cultural fashion that everyone sort of subscribed to? We were certainly designers, but we were,
Oh yeah, I'm listening.
Well, the preppy stuff was really important, and so there was a lot of interest in making sure you look preppy. So people would come to these teenage parties with just like preppy outfits, like what would you consider that? And girls would dress up, we would wear mini skirts and stuff like that too.
Why? I'm curious. Like why preppy? Contrasted with this warehouse. That's so true.
Well, because remember the warehouse and some of these clubs were a bit older. So, I mean, a little bit. Like, we might have been 16, 17, 18. These are people in their 20s, 30s. So they're like kind of half a generation or generation up. So that was a little bit more, it was just a different culture.
Yeah.
So at least when high school kids were being influenced by shit like 16 Candles and watching, you're seeing images um, of what, sort of what was fashion, but also what was class, and these were middle class kids from South and West Side, who were in Jack and Jill, and come on, y'all, help me out with this. And some of these clubs, some of them were debutantes, and so the fashion sort of reflected class as well, so it was, and those who could afford it would imitate, so I remember people like buying little icons and putting them on their shirts, the generic. I mean, it was kind of funny. You guys help me out with it. So yeah, so there's a whole lot around this. There are some big materials. So this is going to be so much fun when we talk about fashion and house music, because there's so many different ways to think about it, around class, culture, race, sexuality, gender. Oh my God!
It's expressive.
Right. So it really was. What's the most important thing that you want to make sure you accomplish with your catalytic event that's happening April 26th at the?
Well, it's the address.
Yeah. So this will makes it perfect, because we want to make this event as Chicago as possible, and it's in a warehouse, 18,000 square foot warehouse. We want to pay homage to how you got to back in the day and create the most authentic experience ever. Because with just how Museum of House is positioned, it's like, how do we bring back this authenticity of dance music culture? And we have to start with the roots. And it's in West Town, in the west side of Chicago, where there's been a lot of legal and illegal parties that happened in that day back in the day, whether that was in the 80s, 90s, or whatever. And we definitely want to bring back that underground feel to it, because the whole reason why this event even exists is we need to find a way to to fundraise for the Museum of House Music. And we really want to make a statement, the first public launch, and we thought it'd be really cool to collaborate with EXPO Chicago and Chicago Fashion Coalition and create the Chicago version of Miami Art Fashion, essentially. Yeah. Where we're going to have a fashion show that's going to that's dance music themed, and we're going to showcase all the fashion trends from 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and present day fashion trends and dance music culture. We really feel like we complement each other really well, and we also want to create like a unique experience for the attendees, also provide like a sense of nostalgia, because I think it's be really cool for you to point out like, oh my gosh, that's what we used to wear in the 80s.
I am so loving it.
Yeah, and then the 90s kids are going to be pointing out there on stage like, oh my gosh, like wow, this is like super relatable, and that's what we really want to do. And after the fashion show, we're going to have an elaborate after party that's sponsored by Art Music Festival, who's going to have G. Ferris out there, and just who's going to perform House Land live, which I'm most excited for. So it's all in a warehouse. We could have picked a commercialized venue, but we really wanted to make this event Chicago as possible. Even the Skin and Garrett's popcorn ball, Chicago Bulls is helping us out. That's Chicago, name it.
That's great. That's great. So you want people to come?
Of course.
We're trying to make sure that we represent. And this is the first of many, I'm guessing. Absolutely. So what is the timeline? Tell us more about. So how do you envision this rolling out over time to where you feel like you're going to be in 5 years from now?
Awesome. Yeah, visionary. We're definitely both visionaries. Some blue sky thinking. I think the creative brief from jump was, what is Chicago's answer to Miami Art Basel, as Pam had mentioned. So I think year over year this will scale. Right now it's like raising awareness locally, but then we also want this to be a tourism driver to Chicago as well, especially with agencies like Choose Chicago involved in EXPO, which is already an internationally appealing event. So I think it will just continue to scale over time that way. In the daytime, I wanted to talk about the first half of it as well, because this is two events, or one day, but kind of two events in one. So the first half of the day from 12 to 5 would be a marketplace style type of setup where we'll have different artisans, designers showing the best that this city has to offer. So it'll be highly curated, but we'll have local designers, selling their pieces, local artists displaying their work, different artists, like I mentioned, and it's kind of almost like a marketplace symposium. I really want to kind of like in the spirit of the World Fair, show the best that the city has to offer culturally. Maybe it's not like Thomas Edison and a light bulb, but it's like your new favorite pair of pants.
I heard a black man helped him anyways.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of like the first half of the day. Yes. But yeah, I think we are just so excited because of how much support we've gotten already. Our sponsor list speaks for itself. Whether Gear Popcorn, Marquan, EXPO, all the Woodford Reserve, all so many. It's like so many I'm missing.
Yes.
But the fact that we're able to get these people to take a risk, since this is the first one, but we kind of got their support. I think next year we're going to be able to, 2x that or scale it even more and get more funding for this as well from different government agencies like DKIS. Maybe they could help to fund both of our nonprofits with a program out of this, because it's not about the one-off. You want to help to develop and retain local talent, both the fashion and music industry. We create a program for DJs, that we create a program for designers. So that's kind of the goal, is to continue to build. We do stuff all year. This is just one of them.
Yeah, I really think like the main piece to the puzzle, why this has taken off like very quickly and fast, is because there's been a lot of collaboration. And I would, which is like really hard to see across the three verticals of culture, like art, music, and fashion. And it really just makes sense to a lot of people. Like, why doesn't that exist in Chicago? And the moment that we all just like really brought the ego down and it's like unified behind Chicago Renaissance Circus, it's just guns blazing. It was amazing to see. And then the sky's the limit after that, because again, we're going through this rebranding strategy for Chicago. How do we bring pride and swag back? And it's really cool how we're like supporting the local community as well. Like we're having a dance, a local Pilsen Chicago dance studio come in and do footwork and house music dances. So cool. And we're also supporting a local graffiti artist who's going to be doing like live graffiti shows and activations. And it's really cool just like be proud of all the raw talent that's around you. Because again, we're not outsourced to anything. Everything's all Chicago. And it's going to help put us back on the map 100%.
That's great. You talked a little bit about sort of business and optimism. And that's something that I think is important to know. You both are business people, and that acumen, as we discussed, is often missing with folks who are creators or talent. And I mean, some people say that's why Chicago has lost out in sort of making the kind of wave that we should have around in the past music. It was sort of exploited and exploited, by so many others. So can you talk about this idea of infusing this business acumen, sort of bringing that to the fore? What does that mean for this venture? What does it mean for our culture?
I think we break it down in simple as possible. Like you need more infrastructure, like in the city, and with infrastructure, you can create a ecosystem, a healthy organic ecosystem and talent incubator. And I think it's important that Chicago has a talent incubator across all the different verticals of culture, art, music, and fashion. Because the thing is, there's a lot of high barriers of entry to begin with. It's like, how do we make this culture a lot more accessible? And also just give like young emerging talent faith that they can make it, and provide mentorship programs. And it's more than about preserving the culture. It's also about sustaining for the future generations. And I think that's what me and Marquan like really aligned for is like we noticed like all of these talented people in our corners, but like they're always like going to LA, New York, and Miami to like take on better opportunities.
Yeah.
It's because there's a lot more infrastructure out there. There's a lot more unity, and I feel like when we unite more and we have this infrastructure, we can create organic relationships and opportunities through our internal network, through ecosystem that we create. Because at the end of the day, we just want to set the stage. We're not going to force any relations for anything. If you set creatives in the space, they'll flourish on its own.
So I appreciate what you're saying. So let me break it down a little bit. So you're saying Chicago has lacked that ecosystem that you're describing that would enable, business-minded folks to support the industry. Why haven't we had a house music museum before now? Why is it taking so long? What were we missing? What are we missing that have prevented us from doing what so many other cities have done? Not I shouldn't say so, but
yeah,
a few other places have done for blues or jazz or hip hop or even house or techno, and we just haven't had it. We've had exhibits, we've had sort of one-offs, but nothing really structured all these years. Is that because we're lacking this ecosystem that you described, and if so, why?
I would say it's more regards to the lacking of unity. Instead of just one group of one particular person doing the museum, in order for this to happen, it needed in the community movement.
Did that happen in these other places? And what makes Chicago unique that it didn't happen? I guess.
Yeah, because the thing is,
now you're not from Chicago, so I don't expect you to have this, but you are. So what do you think?
I mean, I think we definitely can't say that we have the answers, but I could hypothesize.
Please hypothesize.
I've heard time and time again that, like Cam said, there's a lack of cohesion, and even just because of things like systemic issues like redlining, we literally are segregated in the city with the transit system and things like that. So there's a literal physical barrier sometimes in collaboration in terms of getting to hang out with people and to have those collisions and like come together and brainstorm and do things. But then there's also this this mindset of scarcity where it's like, the whole, I hate this word, this is crabs in a barrel mentality, because I don't think it's entirely accurate, because crabs are not native to a barrel. We put those crabs in the barrel, right? So I think we're kind of seeing symptoms of deeper problems. And I think, to Cam's point now, maybe what these other cities have been able to do is like have cohesion, and I think maybe that's the first piece to the puzzle here. And it's just the start. Like, we're not gonna, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think by showing this good faith of we're gonna collaborate, even internally within this sector of house music, but also across the industries.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, I asked that question because, I can't answer it either, but I do like to hear people's thoughts on sort of why these things haven't happened. And I think it's a perfect storm. I do think that Chicago being as segregated as it has been all these years has not served us in that way. That many businesses, just don't work. And you also have a house music community that has been disrupted in so many different ways. So at HIV, that took out a lot of the early pioneers who were DJs and producers and publishers. They're gone. People like, there's so many names. But I think about somebody like a Robert, for example, who passed way before his time. You don't know who he is, but you should read a magazine or Think Inc. He was a publisher who was all about culture, the culture of music, the culture of fashion, the culture of community. And, this was a businessman who had a vision. And, by the time he was in his 30s, he was dead. And I'm so sorry we lost him. So I think that between the death of so many of those entrepreneurs, the segregation that exists that we described, and just the lure of bigger cities London and New York and California, sort of like it just sort of sucked life out of the city. So it's that people remain, really great things happen. And we have a lot of producers and folks who grown up here and are very successful. But that idea of having this unified vision around a place that is ours, we could call it as our museum. It has never happened. And I think we're attempting. That's why we do the exhibit. That's why we're trying to collect stories and preserve these things. But we've got a lot of knocks on our lives, on the community and the culture.
No, that sounds like a dissertation. I want somebody to go to school and literally write a paper on what we just discussed. That was,
Okay, somebody out there's got to write. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I know.
Are you writing your dissertation?
Yeah, I'm taking notes right now.
yeah, because like the pioneers talk about like just the early stages of house music. They never thought it'd get to where it is today.
Yeah.
And I feel like the UKs and like Europe, once they heard about it, like they saw the opportunity, they saw the growth, they saw this like how to scale this. And I think that's what maybe Chicago lacked in. Like when I look at this culture, I see the growth opportunities. I see how you can scale this and do it the right way of taking care of the community as well as finding unique ways to monetize experience and build economic stability to do more cool activations and build more growth for the city of Chicago. So I think it was just more about just pinpointing the opportunity potentially of realizing how big and powerful this genre is and just appreciating it just a tad bit more. And I think that will do magic, just knowing what we are a part of. Because a lot of people are immersed within the culture and on a weekly and monthly basis, but you just need to like be a little more self-aware of like what you're a part of. It's bigger than you. It's a whole like community movement.
It is. And people like you, beautiful young people, they're going to help us to get it there. I'd like to talk about the activations now. So you mentioned that word, and I think that's important because a museum is more than just static pieces on a wall.
Yeah.
What is going to enliven this space? What's going to make it different? Like we're envisioning 5 years from now. So do you think we'll have it in 5 years?
100%.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
he was very certain.
yeah, because this is great. This is great momentum we're at right now, and just how quickly we're moving. We're on good pace, and the thing is, when it comes to culture overall, it's a sensory overload. It's not going to be a standard like museum where it's just writing on the wall. It's like how can we tap into your sensory and then create like a sensory overload?
All right, so walk in and what happens? I know you thought about this.
When you dream
about this house music museum, and hey, listen, y'all can bring with me too. So if you wanted to walk into House Music Museum in Chicago, the premiere day, you walk in there, and what do you see? What's important? What's important for it to be there for you? What has to be there that would make it an authentic experience? Who needs to be featured? What needs to be featured? What's going to make it, less factors and more engagement, more activation? Like, I want to bring my kids and they're going to enjoy this.
Yeah, and I love that. And before, this is just like brainstorming.
Yes.
It's important that when it comes time to design the museum, that we have all the right people at the table.
Yes.
Where we showcase every single decade and person who has made a positive footprint within the culture. Yes. From old to young, I think it's important to have all of them at the table to decide what's in the museum. You can't just just focus on one particular perspective or demographic. That's one thing that's important to me is like if we're going to do this, we got to do it the right way and make sure we have this holistic approach. But if it was up to me, the first thing that comes to mind, you have to hear the bass.
So you walk in the door,
bass has to
like.
Yes, that has to happen.
Go to the floor when you walk into the door.
Yeah, because like when you walk into like the venues, like that's one of the first things you hear, and you start like dancing like in the security line. You're like, oh, okay, it's about to go on. Let's go. And really envision the experience of like you have exhibits, exhibitions of each decade leading up to the present day. So you're going to showcase, because I think it's important to tell the story before house music, like what was the disco era like, and you have to, because like a lot of DJs and pioneers got inspo from the era.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think house music, they say it's disco for
Mhm.
but house music also had grandfather disco in. So like when you hear like so much house music, it's disco. It was called disco then. Now it's called house. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's so yeah. Continue.
Yeah, I think it's cool to just like showcase the evolution of it, and it's definitely important that we emphasize the Chicago foundation, foundational piece of dance music culture.
Okay.
But I also think it's important to showcase the evolution of all the different subgenres of dance music culture, because if we want to make this more than just a local tourism attraction, and turn into a global tourism attraction, you have to include the bridge over to UK, and you have to showcase the drum and bass, Afro house, techno. Like you need to showcase everything, because
footwork.
Yeah, footwork as well.
Ghetto house.
All the subgenres.
Watching, all that's going to be there.
No, 100%. Because for me, it's important to be universally inclusive. No matter what we do, Museum of House is always going to showcase everybody.
Would there be like a road for each one of these things?
It has to be that way. It could be that way, and I see it turning into more of a compound type of experience where you create a mentorship and interactive classes for emerging artists to learn how to mix hands-on instead of on YouTube.
And producing?
Yeah, and produce, of course.
Yeah, so that would be super awesome. And what about ephemera? Like, what do you see? Like, when I go to museums, I do love to see stuff. You know, I was at the museum in Arizona. There's like a music museum in Arizona. And they had like early music. I was like, that is so cool. Like, I wish I hadn't thrown on my mixer away, because I could put it in a museum somewhere. But like what?
Yeah, well, it's important that we showcase like all of like the archival collections of like flyers, posters, but also like equipment. And when I talked to Roland headquarters and Pioneer, we thought it'd be really cool to showcase the timeline of how the equipment evolved over time. Starting from like ground zero to like where it is now, and also just like really cool archival pieces of equipment from past pioneers that need to be preserved and just put on the pedestal, honestly, because that's what this genre is to what it is today. So I think it would be really cool to showcase that.
That would be cool. All right, so I've skipped a few comments. Reginald, Leonard Roy, a few other folks tuning in. Thank you, Lesson. Appreciate you. I think it's important. Thank you, Joseph. It's also important to have a really young input and passion involved. Absolutely. I do want to ask you guys who are watching and listening, what would be important for you to see, like physically, like if you're in a museum, what's grabbing your attention? And I love museums. I'm always taking pictures because I'm just like, I want a whole mural that looks like this. I want to touch things. I want to do that. I think, it's an hour past already.
Yeah, it's
my God.
It's 59.
You know what? We always do this. Well, listen.
So more to talk about.
We always have more to talk about, but let me just say thank you, first of all, for being here. The time always flies, and we are so looking forward to your energy, your ideas, your conversations, your fashion, your business sense, to create this museum of house music and fashion. That intersection has always been, and it's time that we recognize, the importance of how they each other, how they need to work together. So listen, if you're tuning in, we'll be back probably with a part 2, because we're going to keep this conversation going at this house music museum. It's coming. He said within 5 years. I think the way he said it, maybe it's going to be 2 years, 3 years.
We'll
check back.
That's fine.
I love it.
Could we do a plug?
We can do, yes. We're going to do a plug as we sign out. Please go ahead. First of all, reintroduce my guest, Phillips, Marquan
Jones.
They are the curators, designers, executive producers of the Chicago Renaissance Showcase on April 26th here in Chicago. We will post more on that, so please show up, show out for that. It's going to be an amazing day, so please give us a plug.
Yes, so you can simply follow us on Instagram at Chiren Show. That's CHIREN Show. And then in the bio, you can find the Museum of House Music and also Chicago Fashion Coalition.
And for all the OGs out there, I feel like it's going to be a high school reunion. I just have a sense it's going to be a Chicago high school reunion. And I'm so excited for it because I just want everybody to be like, oh my gosh, I mean, it's 10 years. Like, look at this outfit, look at that.
Absolutely.
And all in the warehouse. Bring it back.
Bring your fashions back.
Please bring it.
Some eyes out there. Yeah, I'm sorry too. I'm going to be out of town. We're going to make sure it's packed. All right, y'all. Great show. Thank you again. Have a great week. We'll see you next